that companies fail because founders run out of money and runway. It's been my experience. It's not actually.
They give
Most
up.
times it's because they
Yeah.
give up and they quit. They just
give
get
up.
tired.
Yeah. And well, usually it's a solo founder,
Yeah.
or it was two founders and one founder left.
Yep.
And all my wind downs now have been in that situation. Either
Me
they
too.
started as a solo or they ended up as a solo, usually in a consumer low margin business. So they're not default alive without a huge amount of volume. This is why B2B SaaS is kind of the best, right? And that's why I tend to like look for companies that have 20 or 30K of monthly recurring revenue, because you're kind of default alive at that point if you have good enough margins, and B2B SaaS typically does. And so that's where we kind of like to invest. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the Ignite podcast. Today, we're delighted to have Steve Walsh on the program. He's from Hands On Angel and a longtime collaborator on Team Ignite. We've co-invested on many great deals over the past. So thank you for that, Steve. Welcome to the program.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. It's great to see you, Brian.
Yeah, likewise. Would love to get an intro from you for the audience.
So I describe myself as a contrarian investor. I like to say I help early stage founders accelerate capital, revenue, and growth. And at its core, I'm a former operator turned investor and entrepreneur later on in life. And I spend my days, like you, building and supporting early stage founders at the pre-seed and seed stage. And I get to do so with some outstanding people that are really building what the rest of the world's going to see in the next 5 years. And we get to really look at that. And that's super humbling, exciting, and fun all at the same time. That's really what I do.
It's the best, way better than operating.
It really is. Like, people are like, do you miss it? Because I'm going on year 7 being away from that. I'm like, there isn't enough money in the world like to make me go back. I'm just having too much fun. And the fact that we can do it anywhere with a laptop, a Zoom account, a cell phone, all over the world, it's just like, no way. I'm never going back to
that. I like to tell people I would sell my house and move my family into a 2-bedroom apartment. I have 3 kids before I'd stop doing what I do.
I have 2 kids, same thing. We live at the beach, we downsize, we travel a lot. Our son lives in California, so we do a lot of bi-coastal stuff. My wife works remotely too, and we were in Aruba 2 weeks ago working, and we were in Italy last year working. It's awesome. It's
nice.
It's all about lifestyle, and more importantly for me, it's about the people I get to work with. It's a conscious choice to do your show, to work with the founders we work with. I never have to feel like I got to talk to Brian now. I'm always like, hey, cool, I get to be on Brian's podcast, talk to a friend. Right. It's just it's a huge blessing. It really is.
It's great. Yeah, if you don't like founders or meeting interesting people, then this life is not for you.
It's definitely not.
I love that. Where did you guys work at in Italy?
We were in Florence. We went to one of my founders got married in Slovenia, and I didn't even know where the hell Slovenia was. And we were supposed to go for our 25th wedding anniversary during COVID, and that got kabutz. So I said to my wife, hey, Italy's right next to Slovenia. Want to just pop over to Florence and Venice for a week after we go to the wedding? She's like, great. So we hung out in Florence and Venice, which was great. It was my first trip to Italy. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, I went 20 years ago, and I haven't been back since. But I was, right after college, a couple of years after college, and we're going to go to Greece this summer, which is going to be a lot of fun.
I heard it's awesome. I heard the food, the wine, unbelievable.
I can't wait. Yeah, so it could be 3 weeks, and more importantly, 3 weeks and not having to worry about anything, which I'm looking forward to, because
are you taking
this job, as great as it is,
as
great as this job is, like, there's just a lot to worry about too. There's lots of stuff coming at you. Yeah, every day. But I love it.
You're a founder just in a different way. Yeah, we're founders just in a different way. We just worry about things differently.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's talk about kind of early Steve's life here. Like, how did you end up being an angel? Let's talk about the early operating history. What did you want to do when you grew up and all that stuff?
I got here by accident, probably the same way most of us do. I was a 25-year operator. My claim to fame is I helped 2 of the largest broadband companies in the world, Cox Communications and Comcast, get in the B2B space. They were sort of these archaic residential cable companies. I was a B2B guy. And they're like, hey, there's an opportunity for us to get in the B2B space. I was an early employee at both. And at Cox, we built it into $1 billion in 7 years. And then I moved over to Comcast because the president of Cox became the president of Comcast business. I was an early employee there. We built that from nothing to 10 billion in 10 years. Tremendous amount of fun. But after like 20 years in the space, 25 years, I was just like, okay, kind of been there, done that. Pulled the ripcord, took a package, and I wasn't going to retire. I was like 46, and I had 2 kids and a house like you. And I was a pretty big public market investor, and I started to get into alternatives pretty heavily about 7 years ago. And I started with things, the traditional ones, real estate, art, wine, watches. Then I got the crypto bug, mostly Bitcoin and Ethereum. and startups just made sense. I realized pretty quickly that I'd forgotten more about business than most of the founders I was meeting. And I just had sort of this premise of, first of all, do no harm and try to be as helpful as possible. And so I would just meet a bunch of founders and be like, where do you need help? And they would just give me a laundry list of stuff that started usually with capital.
Mm.
But then it would get into, I'm like, okay, forget capital for a second. That's like one thing.
Yeah.
You need like 100 things for a business to work. Where do you need help? And they're like, we need a Delaware attorney. Do you know anybody? I'm like, oh, I know 5 of them. We need, top of funnel marketing. We need tech talent that didn't work at Meta and cost 300 grand. And I found myself just connecting founders with resources in my network that could help them grow faster. And I started writing checks. And, I tried to not do what everybody does when they become an angel, which is everybody says, oh, I know which one's going to win. So I'm going to write 1 or 2 checks, big checks into a few companies. I went the opposite way. I wrote small checks into a really diverse portfolio of companies and learned.
Yeah.
I got to learn early on for some folks that have been doing it longer and a lot more successfully than me, guys like Jason Calacanis, Gil Pacino from Flight, Zach Calias Capital. I just sort of followed them and started learning from them. I read Jason's book, watched a bunch of his podcast, and I got to meet him, and it was just kind of cool. And that's how I started. And it was all by accident. And, probably like you, Brian, 1 led to 2 and 2 led to 5. And now, like 7 years later, there's 65 portfolio companies. So I never expected it to get here. And now this is all I do is work with founders. Really wasn't the plan. And I think sometimes the best plans are ones that happen by accident,
Yeah. And we both share that, which is the hive, the spray and pray, as it were. Like, tell us about why that's the right strategy for you.
It was in the beginning because I didn't know. My favorite phrase with founders is I don't know what I don't know. So in the beginning for me, it was diverse portfolio, go across a lot of industries, early stage, and learn to read deal memos and learn to understand what good looks like. But the longer I did it, I found, probably like you, the narrower my scope started to get, because I started to realize what I really liked and what I was good at and how I could leverage my experience to help those companies grow. So, for example, I spent my entire career in B2B, specifically B2B SaaS. So B2B SaaS, and within SaaS, I understand how money moves. So fintech was attractive. My dad was a principal, so ed tech was attractive. I like to work out, so sports tech, and I played sports in college, so sports tech was attractive. So I started to narrow my focus into things that had a B2B slant and around things that I knew, liked, and had context in. So the longer I do it, the more it's like this. I would actually argue that today, knowing what I know, I probably have 20 portfolio companies that if they were pitched to me today, I would not invest in. Not because they're not great companies, but because it doesn't fit my narrower thesis that I've developed over time.
Yeah.
So it's definitely evolved the longer I've done it.
Yeah, same with me. I think when I got started, I did a bunch of investments. I'd be like, I wouldn't have invested in that at all now. But, that's the benefit to having a higher volume strategy. There's, something like 10,000 companies in the world every year. They get, pre-Series A financing, call it. 200 or 300 of those turn into unicorns. So there's just a lot to look at, right? And you could say yes a lot, but you still have to say no a ton.
There is an art to saying no. That's the thing I've really developed over the years is I have a really good way of telling a founder it's not a fit. And it's because I started employing something years ago. Gary Vee talks about it now. If you follow Gary Vaynerchuk, he calls it kind candor. And I think there is a way to give people kind candor about why you're not investing. And I think one of the things that's lost a lot in our industry is people don't have the guts to tell founders no. They don't, more importantly, have the guts to tell founders why they're not coming in. And I mean really specific, like you don't have the traction and here's the traction you would need, or I don't like your margin and here's what I'd like to see. When you provide kind candor to founders, I think it helps them get to the next yes fast. I think founders truly appreciate it when someone has the courage to tell them they're not in, but have the courage to tell them why, as opposed to everyone uses the cliche, it's not a fit, it's too early. Well, what the hell does that mean? Like, I'm a founder having 300 conversations. Could you be a little more specific? Because I'm kind of dying on the vine over here because you're not telling me exactly what you think. So that's really where the ability to say no, but to do it in a way that still brings value to a founder, I think is really important to me.
I think it's something I've wrestled with as an investor, because we say no, 495 times or more per month, right? So we're having to say no a lot. And if I gave feedback on every single one, I wouldn't get to anything else, right? And so I've really struggled with this because what it does is it invites a conversation. Hey, it's not a fit for us. As X, Y, and Z. Oh, great. Well, let me tell you about X, Y, and Z. And and then I'm like, gosh, now I got to spend another 5 or 10 minutes considering what they said versus just being like, okay, I didn't see what I was looking for. I need to pass and move on, because you have to get to these easy yeses.
Yes.
But I also agree with you that it is, I mean, VCs try to be as nice as we can and angels, but you have to understand we're kind of human ATM machines, and people kind of know the PIN code, and we need to be really careful with our time. Otherwise, we won't get to like our portfolio companies or saying yes to anything good, or that's a fit for us. But yeah, I try to always give feedback when I can, but sometimes it's like, it's like your baby's ugly, and your baby is hideous, and I do not want to like look at the baby like
It's like the
how
Seinfeld
do you
episode. You got to come see
yeah
the baby.
yeah come see the baby. I'm like, gosh,
Well, it's funny,
you're
Brian. What I do a lot now, I say no a lot up front. Really like you, I get a lot of requests on LinkedIn for chats, and people reach out. And the first thing I say to them is, Brian, before we chat, would love to look at your deck just to see if it fits my thesis. And they're like, well, let's have a call to look at the deck.
Mhm.
I'm like, no, I really have a process, and it's until I get to see a deck to give you a thumbs up, thumbs down, we're not having a call. So that weeds out a lot of it, because if it's not a fit, I can just go right back to them and go, you know something, Brian, it's just not a space I have context in or spend a lot of time in, so I'm not the best fit, but I wish you all the best. So I'm actually saying no a lot up front to avoid those discussions. But when I do take a meeting and then it's not a fit, I try to be very conscious about the feedback that I give them and very intentional.
Yeah, and I've even gone a step further than that. I mean, I have a forum wired up. I ask the questions that I care about, and then I'm actually wiring up AI now to look at the responses in the deck and the videos, and have the doing some prompt engineering to basically have the AI give me an opinion based on what I think to be good. Like, here's what I think a good team looks like: good, better, best. Can you now assess the team and then give me a rating and why you scored it that way? So I'm in the process now of wiring this all up on Airtable, because I'm getting 30 decks a day at this point.
That's bonkers.
And it's just like, it's bonkers. It's 1,000 a month, right? And
especially since you announced the other day that you're launching this new fund. Now it's 50 decks a day.
Yeah, like it's becoming a thing. It's all it's all part and parcel to doing this job, right? Is putting yourself out there and saying, like, putting the stake in the ground. This is what I do and how I invest. So that has led to lots of deal flow, which is a great problem to have. Now it's a filtering mechanism. One is like, okay, Steve thinks it's a good one. Okay, I'm going to talk to this founder, and we've co-invested on many deals at this point.
Yep.
And other times it's, hey, I found you, blah blah blah, and like I got this yada yada, and and I don't. It's a cold inbound, but what you should know if you're a founder listening is we look at everything.
We do,
because there's a little FOMO, I think, as an investor. Like, I better look at this. Who knows if it's the next Google or whatever. So,
but I'll tell you, I look at I put a exponentially high visibility on ones that come from friends like you. Like, what I tell a founder is, you really want to get my attention, go find one or two of my friends that are investing in your company or interested in your company, and then come to me. Because if you say, hey, Brian Bell and so that already invested in me or back me, I'm going to listen a lot more.
Yeah. And then I try to only send out, when I'm sending out deal flow now, I try to only send out very high conviction deal flow.
You and me both.
Because I'm kind of putting my brand behind this. Hey, I'm Brian Team Ignite, and here's a deal.
Because the first thing people are going to ask you is, would you back the founder? And if your answer is, well, no, but it might be a good deal for you, then what are we doing?
Obviously, we're not aligned, and like, why are you sending me this junk? Why are you sending me your junk? Right. Tell us about the definition and rationale behind being a contrarian investor.
So, for me, and I take this from my days in corporate life, I was always told that I was the one that was at times too candid. I would tell people exactly what I was thinking.
You got that Bostonian brutal honesty thing.
Kind of that Northeast, the worst thing you can ever say to me is tell me what you're thinking, because I will. And I'll do it in a way that's not going to make you feel bad, but I'm going to
I will tell you exactly what I think.
One of my founders that I've worked with for the last couple of years, I love these guys at Rook Motion. The first meeting I ever had with them, they were like, "What do you think?" I go, I said, I've got some feedback, but you want the green pill or the red pill? Sorry, green pill
I think it's blue and red.
Blue and red. Sorry, the
yeah.
blue and red pill. And I'm like, blue's what you want to hear, and red is the candid feedback. He goes, I'd like the red pill. I said, well, I love your product, I love you guys, but the reason you're not raising is your deck sucks and you're talking to the wrong people.
Yeah.
And if you could get a deck that was halfway decent and started talking to the right people, you guys would kill it. And he's like, tell me more, please. And I'm like, okay. And then we just went into it. And I'm super close with these guys now, but it started from a place of, let me tell you that you asked, so let me tell you why it's not working. And the contrarian piece of me now that's carried into my investing philosophy, which is, I think you owe it to founders telling them that their deck isn't good enough, or they shouldn't raise yet, or they're not ready to raise, or they don't have the right traction. Because I think by telling them that, while it's hard to hear that feedback, you're saving them hours and months of pain by talking to investors that are just going to tell them they're too early or don't have enough traction. I'd rather save them 100 hours and say, you know what you should put that 100 hours to? Go get 50 more customers and another 10 grand in revenue. Because fundraising will be exponentially easier if you have the traction that's required. And I think what I've gotten over the last couple of years is founders going, I really appreciate the candor you bring. And I appreciate the fact that you're trying to help me get to yes. And I thought it was just me being me, but it's been like eye-opening to have people say to me, no one in this industry behaves like that. I wish more people did. It's almost like if you have kids, you might know, like Despicable Me, the movie, the Minions, like almost like when the Minions saw Gru for the first time. I invented fire. Like I'm just giving people kind candor and feedback. And it tends to be contrarian to what the industry does. So I heard that feedback enough. I'm like, I guess I'm a contrarian investor. I just do things that other people don't do.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and I'll try to bring a little Steve in my radical candor feedback to founders, because I don't think I do a good enough job of it. I did it over the years, but I think I've fallen into the VC aloof kind of mindset where I'm kind of worn out on it, giving feedback to everyone because of that issue of looking at 20 or 30 decks every single day, meeting with 5, 6, 7 founders a day. And I've gotten to the point where I'm like, I have to save my energy, or this is gonna suck me dry. Like if I'm giving feedback to every single person and spending all my time with everyone. Not that, yeah. But point taken, I will try to do a better job, Steve. That's great.
I think you do a pretty good job, man. I don't know. The deal flow you get, and obviously the number of people you've invested in speaks volumes.
Well, and that's part of my strategy, right? Is I assume I'm bad at this, and most VCs think they're good at this. And when they assume they're good at this, they don't put in the hard work. And then they blow up and they can't raise the next fund, right? And so a big part of my strategy is like what's the optimal strategy if I'm bad at this? Well, it's to put in a lot of freaking hard work. Now we'll see how that goes. So far, it's going well, but and let's see how long it's sustainable before I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to make 20 investments every 3 years, But we'll see.
Plus, the math says that it is a volume game. Like the math, and I vetted this a few times with some different folks. The math tells me that for every 10 investments I make, 5 are going to 0, right. 6 and 7 are probably 2 to 5x, 8 and 9 are probably 10 to 100x, and the 10th investment is something else. It could be 1,000x, 10,000x, whatever.
Yeah, but it's actually out of 100. It's actually 1 out of 100 or 1 out of 2 or 300 that actually really hit it out of the ballpark.
And then unicorns are about 1 out of every 30. That's
about right. Yeah. 2 or 3%. Yeah, 2 or 3%.
Yeah. So I've got 5 right now. So I'm like, okay, so I should at the end of this, if I did no more investments, I should end up with a unicorn or 2.
Yeah, like if you assume you have a random sampling of all deal flow and you randomly pick out of 100, 2 or 3 at random should go. But there's some people that have better picking ability. There's some people that have better access and deal flow, better whatever networks, and worse. But I think the more bets you make, the more that standardization compresses around the mean. Right. And if you look at the largest funds, they don't pick them any better than statistics. They're just, Sequoia, one of the best firms in the world, still only hits unicorns at 2.5%, 2.8%. So just like the long-term average, wow, great. Here's like billions of dollars to hit the averages. No offense, Sequoia, we love you, but send us some good deals.
It's awesome. But it's also it's volume, but it's also quality. And what I realize is the longer I've done this, the quality that I get today and the access, because access is everything, is a heck of a lot better.
This is what I try to tell people that are getting started, right? They're looking to invest with us. And we have the public YC fund, so we can talk about it. But they're like, I'll just look at syndicates. And I'm like, great. How many investments are you planning to make over the next 3 years? Oh, I'm going to make, 5 a year. And I'm like, wrong. You're not going to have enough diversification to hit these outliers. And you're not going to get up to the bat. Steph Curry takes like 300 shots every day, right? The greatest shooter in history.
And an angel investor, pretty active, by the way.
Yeah, I need to connect with him. Actually, Kent Bazemore lives in my neighborhood.
Oh, that's funny.
Former NBA player. He's right around the corner. I see him jogging around. He's building a hoop outside of his house to do basketball camps. I'll try to have him on the podcast sometime. That'd be a lot of fun.
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
One of my founders just got Meta World Peace as an advisor and investor.
Nice.
Yeah, a lot of ex-athletes now are looking to this sector, and family offices. A lot of the sports teams have family offices centered around it. It's a really growing sector.
Yeah, and I think that all kind of started because of the Warriors, right?
Probably.
I think Andre Iguodala was a big time VC, had his own fund, I think, even, and Kevin Durant certainly made a lot of angel investments in LA too. Like lots of folks in LA, a lot of movie stars, Ashton Kutcher, and
Kutcher's done really well. People like always on Shark Tank, isn't that cool? I'm like, he's a really serious investor.
He's really smart.
He's really smart.
He's really smart, and he has network, and so much of this is network and brand. Which is why we have the Ignite podcast in the first place, is to help our founders, get exposure, but also help Team Ignite get exposure, right? And
absolutely,
and people like you too.
Brian, you have to build every single day, every day. Like people think I post on LinkedIn every day just because I have spare time in my life. It's just I'm trying to build brand and make sure people understand what I do, where I do it, and how I can help founders. It's just you got to show up.
It's so funny you mentioned that because I have a long line of clips in my buffer, and people tell me like every time I logged into LinkedIn, there's your face again talking to somebody.
A friend of mine texted me last. He goes, "Dude, you're blowing up my phone with your LinkedIn post. Where do you find this time?" And the funny thing is, I had this conversation with a good friend of mine the other day. I said, it's not like a big secret, but every Sunday morning I get up before my family and it's me and the dog and I have coffee and I sit in the chair and I literally turn my phone off. All through the week, I have sticky notes and notes I've done on my phone of just ideas, clips I see, ideas about posts. And on Sunday morning, I just write my entire week's worth of content for LinkedIn.
Oh my gosh.
And I pre-schedule it all.
That post queue is so long for me. Like I'm almost done with my book. I called it Angel Investing in the Age of AI. And I'm almost done with it. I think I'm gonna try to finish it when I'm traveling in Greece because I'll just have hopefully some downtime. We're doing like a very slow. We did 5 weeks last summer with all the kids and my father-in-law. So 6 of us, 10 countries in 6 weeks. And we're like, why did we do that? That was so grueling.
That was painful.
And so painful. So now my wife's like, hey, let's go to Greece. I'm like, great. Let's just like really take it easy. Let's build in a lot of downtime where we're not even sure what to do with ourselves.
Awesome.
So 3 weeks, one country. She's still got it all planned out and it's going to be a lot, I think. But we're doing like 4 islands and the Peloponnese and everything in like 3 weeks. But we'll see.
Is this your first time ever to Greece?
No, second time. I backpacked there out of college a long time ago. Yeah, we just did Athens and like the closest island. So it wasn't much, a few nights, 4 nights, something like that.
Nice.
Yeah. So tell us about your Techstars experience. Is Techstars still running in Boston? Like, what's the deal with that? I hear they're shutting down locations. No,
with the Techstars 2.0, it was one of the cities that's going to be one of the hubs.
Okay.
And they're actually going to be doing more programs there. So this is my third time as a Techstars mentor, second time as a mentor in residence in Boston. My friend Curdy Levy is the managing director, and Jennifer Davis runs the investing side. Awesome team. I serve at the pleasure of my founders. I really do. And I'm mentoring 12 companies right now.
Oh, wow.
In their spring accelerator. It's super cool. It really goes back to what we talked about at the top, which is sort of this give first mentality. I go into the mentoring at Techstars. Everyone's like, oh, you must do it for deal flow or clients. I'm like, actually, I don't. I do it because it's the right thing to do. And it's a really great way for me to give back to a community that's given an entirely new career to me in the second part of my life. So I really look at it as, let me just go be as helpful as possible. And if you look at the companies that are getting into Techstars, and what I love about what they're doing is they're really trying to give opportunity to those that might not get the opportunity before. So when you look at the cohort, it's a great mix of first-time founders and repeat founders. It's a mix of women and men. It's a mix of US based and immigrants. It's a mix of LGBT, everything under the sun. And I think it's fabulous because it brings diversity of thought to the discussion. And I look at it and go, a lot of these founders might not have gotten an opportunity to even build a company if it wasn't for Techstars. And I just think the world of what they're doing, and I get to help them in some small way. So next week, we're getting ready for demo day in a few weeks.
Oh, nice.
And so I'm just doing prep with them for the next couple of weeks. I'll go in and host office hours, and literally one after another, we'll just go through their demo day pitch, refine it, give them feedback. And it's almost like kind of fun where they'll say to me, Steve, can you just come in and like kick the crap out of the founders for 2 hours and like give them really candid feedback? But we do it to make sure that by the time they hit demo day, they're just ready. Yeah. And it's a lot of fun, and it's really rewarding, and it's a lot of work for the founders, but I don't know. It's pretty special. It's time that I really have enjoyed doing. And with what we do, it's hard to find the time to do it. Yeah. But every time I go, I enjoy it so much. I'm like, I'm just going to continue to do it. So I tell Curdy all the time, I'll do it as long as you'll have me.
Do you actually get paid? They're giving you some amount of money to do it, or?
Zero.
Wow.
Zero. And honestly, Brian, I don't want any money.
Wow.
I don't. This is one of those things. Yeah. I think, I say it all the time. I send out a holiday message, and I always say, I believe that you need to give more than you get. And this is one of the opportunities for me to do that. I just think that I am so blessed. We talked about the beginning, right? We work in a world and have a life that we can travel to Greece and go to Aruba and just do what we do anywhere. Yeah. This ecosystem gives that to me. So if there's a way for me to give back, I'm fine doing that.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. I feel the same way. I've mentored and advised lots of startups and never invested in, and just out of the kindness of my heart, every time I spend 30 minutes with them, basically, you're trying to make them a little better off than when they first got on the call. And even if, like you said, if that's being radically candid and giving them the tough love. So I'll expect some really good deal flow from you in a couple weeks, it sounds like.
Absolutely. I mean, there's some awesome companies, awesome companies coming out of this cohort. I'm really excited.
Let's talk about some of the, the most awesome companies you've invested in. What are some of your favorites?
I mentioned the guys at Rook.
What does Rook do?
Techstars, immigrant founders from Mexico City in Germany, building a great product and a great company. They've raised over $2 million, and they're growing really fast. So I really here's what I love. I love their coachability. I love their humility. I love that they don't know everything about everything and that they ask for help. And in their case, the company was headquartered in Mexico City. So I helped them figure out turning it into a Delaware Corp and introducing them to US investors and really getting them to be venture scale, to the point where the founder, I was like, look, you can leave the dev team in Mexico City, but you can't build a $100 million company headquartered in Mexico City. You can build a $10 million company, completely up to you, but the company's got to be here. Wow. We're raising the round, and he calls me, and I do a really bad impression. He goes, I wanted you to know, I tell my wife, we sell the house, we move to Miami. And I go, what? He's like, I'm moving to Miami. And I'm like, you're moving? And he's got 2 little kids. He goes, you're right. We have to do it. And so he moved the friggin' family to Miami. We raised the round.
How did he go through Techstars, or?
They did. They went through Techstars. They actually went through Techstars Australia, of all places, which is weird. Doing
Techstars helps them get because they. My understanding is if you're an immigrant to the United States, if you have a corporation in the States that you've raised money into, then you can get basically an H1. You could come live here.
Correct.
That's pretty incredible. What a cool immigration
kind of a
policy.
Cool twist. And it's been fun. And we did an event in Miami to help them raise their round that I ran. And I had never met, I'd seen Marco's family on Zoom, but I had never met his wife face to face. So he's like, my wife went with me. He's like, I'd love us to go out to dinner, the 4 of us. I go, great. So we show up. And this is the first time I've met his wife since she's moved to Miami. I'm like, I want to say I'm so happy you're here. And at the same time, I want to apologize because I kind of think this might be my fault. And she was like,
but Miami, not. They moved from Germany, you said?
No, they moved from Mexico City.
Oh, down in Mexico.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought you said Mexico and Germany.
Mexico and Germany. So 2 founders, one's from Mexico, one's from Germany.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Both immigrants.
Yeah, I've heard Mexico City's beautiful. I need to go.
It is.
I've heard it's amazing.
So that's one of my favorite companies I've worked with. A lot of fun.
Yeah. So what about it made it your favorite? Is it just hey, let's pack our bags and go to Miami? Like that sort of one way?
I think it was. I like founders that have no plan B. I love founders that are like, yeah, I'll move out of my country that I've lived in and take my wife away from her entire family and sell my
Wow.
house and move to a foreign country. And oh yeah, fine, create a Delaware Corp, no big deal.
Yeah.
I love founders that put all on the line and have a lot to lose, and
Yeah.
they just go for it. And these guys, they work relentlessly, absolutely relentless. And that's what it takes, Brian. A lot of people think that companies fail because founders run out of money and runway. It's been my experience. It's not actually.
They give
Most
up.
times it's because they
Yeah.
give up and they quit. They
They
just
give
get
up. Yeah.
tired.
And well, usually it's a solo founder,
Yeah.
or it was two founders and one founder left.
Yep.
And all my wind downs now have been in that situation. Either they
too.
started as a solo or they ended up as a solo. Usually in a consumer low margin business, so they're not default alive without a huge amount of volume. And this is why B2B SaaS is kind of the best, right? And that's why I tend to like look for companies that have 20 or 30K of monthly recurring revenue, because you're kind of default alive at that point. If you have good enough margins, and B2B SaaS typically does. And so that's where we kind of like to invest. But yeah,
I tell founders I won't invest if they don't have at least 10K, 10 to 25K in revenue. It's not worth it. Because
Yeah.
you're right, they can't afford to pay themselves, never mind. It's just, you're not default alive.
Yeah. And you should be able to bootstrap most software-based businesses to 20K of monthly recurring revenue. Maybe
Right.
do a small friends and family round or something like that. That's fine. But you're kind of not pre-seed ready until you kind of hit that revenue mark. And I actually put that on my form. It's like, we typically won't invest without these kind of things. These are hard and fast rules. That being said, some founders they're just so amazing. They're on their second or third startup, or it's a team that has a patent and they're spinning out from yada yada. And it's like, okay, like everything else kind of looks good. But yeah, cash talks.
So
right?
that's one that, like, the founders I just fell in love with. Another one that I just fell in love with, the founder and the product, is a company called Alto IRA. So Eric Satz, CEO, is a friend of mine. Eric
It's
is
been around for a while. You invested in that recently, or?
No, I've been in it his last 3 rounds.
Oh wow, so you're early on for Alto. Nice.
And he did a Series B a year and a half ago, a $25 million Series B at like I think $250, $300 million valuation.
Yeah.
So
that's a good one.
What I really love is it's a product that I use all the time, because
Right.
it allows me to use my IRA dollars to invest into startups, wine, art, real estate.
Venture
It's
funds?
basically what.
No, I'm joking. Venture funds?
I can invest in anything I want.
Yeah.
But it's it's basically, Eric took what Peter Thiel did with Facebook 20 years ago, which was make an investment out of his IRA, and he put it onto a platform and operationalized
It was actually his parents, actually. I misunderstood the story. I thought it was his, but it was actually his parents.
It's unbelievable.
And so Congress passed a new rule, right? Where they cap it at $10 million of tax-free gains or something like that.
Yeah. And when I saw the product, and I was like, I can invest out of my IRA into all these other alternative assets with one click, and you have integrations with AngelList, Republic, Masterworks. I'm like, this is a no-brainer. No, and I'm like, I said to Eric that if you do not exit to JP Morgan, Fidelity, one of the big financial houses in the next couple of years for $1 billion, I would be shocked. I'd be
curious, like, what their moat is, right? Because if you're a big Fidelity or what have you, couldn't you just get your BD guy to go make those integrations? Or is there enough technological moat there with the integrations and the seamlessness?
I think it's just the tech they've built and being a startup, they're so nimble. A company like Fidelity would struggle doing that. The other thing is, what Alto does is enable alternative assets, which the big houses like Fidelity and JP Morgan won't touch. So I can't go to Fidelity and
they don't make much money off of it. They want to sell you their own stuff, right?
Exactly.
They want to sell you that.
So Fidelity's not going to sell art from Masterworks.
Right.
They're not going to sell wine. I buy wine on VinoVest or Vince.
Their salary depends on them not understanding these alternative assets, right?
And it's great. And every time I've had an advisor from Fidelity for 20 years. He's a good friend of mine. He calls me. He's like, dude, you keep taking a ton of money out of your IRA. I go, when I can invest into wine, art, real estate, and crypto out of my Fidelity account, I'll keep it. But until then, I'm moving into Alto.
Ouch. Yeah. And I think a lot of the alpha now is outside of those big brokerage houses, right? Because they're going after public equities, which, historically, companies would go public at, 300, 400, $500 million valuations, I think of like before the .com, definitely in the 90s and to a certain extent the 2000s, but now the average IPO is billions of dollars.
Well, what did the last year, 100 companies went public? Not even 100.
Well, I mean, last year was a bloodbath in the markets, but yeah.
I have a good friend of mine. I talked to him this morning. He was a founder in the 80s. He took his company public, and the year they went public, the company did $5 million in revenue. That's it.
Wow. Wow.
That would never happen nowadays. The average public company has $1 billion or $2 billion in
You
revenue.
might get a Series A. You might get a Series A at a
Right. That's
$5
it.
million valuation.
5 million.
That's funny.
He took it public. It's nuts.
Yeah. That's crazy. So yeah, I mean, let's talk about the future. What kind of trends are you excited about? Where do you kind of see yourself in 5 to 10 years? Like almost like an interview question.
The trends, look, like everybody else, I'm paying attention to AI. I think you have to. I think you'd be out of your mind if you didn't.
AI stands for what now?
I find myself asking this question. It's the same question I asked Web3 founders 3 or 4 years ago that were pitching me. Explain to me why and how you're using AI. Explain to me how what you're doing with AI is differentiated from everybody else doing it, and how this isn't just a plug into an open source architecture that anybody else with a smart coder could do and an API. And explain to me why your team with this product at this time is going to do it so differently with the 5 AI startups for legal, 4 for accounting, and 3 for sports tech that I've seen in the last week. How are you going to differentiate yourself in this space? So I know it's going to change, but it's really hard for guys like us, Brian, that do a lot of deals to weed through what's crap and just a copycat versus what's real and unique. But I do think that's something I'm paying attention to a lot.
I like your phrase, there's no plan B for the founders. I actually literally added that to my call note sheet where I take notes, and I have all these like questions I kind of think about as I'm talking to founders. And I've actually started blatantly asking 2 questions. One is, who put that chip on your shoulder? Which I really like. And I say it in a nice way, and I'm kind of like, and here's why I have a chip on my shoulder. And I kind of like, but most founders will have a really good origin story of what drives them. And then is like, hey, what if this doesn't work out? What's your plan B?
Right.
And you're kind of looking for, what are you talking about? This is all I'm doing for 10 years, or 20 years. And then it's like, and then there's like that vision question of like, okay, where do you see this in 10 years? And you're kind of looking for really good answers for all 3 of those to kind of like get a sense of how committed the founder is, right? Are they willing to, like you said, just hustle, work hard, and upend their whole lives? And there's been a couple really successful funds. That's what they look for. It's like basically immigrant founders, right? One Way Ventures and Geek VC.
Yeah.
Ihar's been on the program actually.
To answer your other question, like where do I see this in 5 years? I hope, God willing, my son will be in college. So my wife and I have already said we want to spend 1 to 3 months a year, especially in the winters, because I live in the Northeast and it sucks here in the winter.
Yeah.
In some warm climate, maybe Kenya, maybe Aruba, Puerto Rico in the winter. And I hope, honestly, I'm doing exactly what I'm doing now, but doing it at a little larger scale. So right now, I'm helping hundreds of founders a year. And I'm doing that through working with Techstars, investing, and also doing events that I've done at South by, Art Basel, all over the place. In 5 years, I'd like that to be in a little larger scale. So I'd like to go from helping hundreds to thousands a year. And I'd like to do it on a more global scale, which maybe I'm doing an event in Europe. Maybe I'm doing an event in APAC. Do it on a more global scale, because I do think there's tremendous opportunity even outside the US of companies that would like to come here for capital and fundraising. And I think that what you do and what I do very much can be replicated in some of these developing economies. So that's how I'd like to see my brand growing over time, is how can I just help more founders and do it at scale? That would be the ultimate vision, is just do what I'm doing at scale and have a lot of fun at the same time doing it.
Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine doing anything else. And if I've thought of that thing, or if I stopped liking it, I'd quit immediately. It'd be a disservice to my LPs and my founders if I wasn't 100%, 110% committed to this every single day.
I agree. So. Everyone has this vision, by the way, that what you and I do is fun. And it is a tremendous amount of fun. They underestimate the amount of work. They just do. Like people like, I see, because they see your podcast and your posts and mine, and they're like, oh, you're all over the place. You're meeting founders. You're at events. Like, what do you work like 10, 20 hours a week? I'm like, I think you have a misunderstanding of what I do. I try like 70, 80 hours. Like, what? I go, what you didn't see outside of those posts was I did 20 meetings this week with founders and funders. Like, hello. Yeah. They're like, that's a lot. Like a couple of my friends that are more, like my age, they're like, I was thinking of doing it part-time. Is it a big time commitment? I go, Doesn't have to be, but the way I do it, yeah, it is.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and for those that don't know, I mean, Steve is probably the most hands-on angel out there. He'll literally you'll make an intro, and then you'll show up on the call.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's ever done that.
Really?
In 6 years of doing this is maybe a few times, but like you've done it almost every time. Every time you make an intro, you're like,
I
oh, there's
appreciate
Steve
that,
on
man.
the call.
And that's by design, Brian. I don't think I think it's unfair because I would consider you a friend. I think it's unfair to introduce someone that you don't know to a friend of mine and
Mm,
then not show up to say, first of all, Brian, let me make this connection. And second of all,
yeah,
let me tell you why I like this founder and why I'm backing them. I just think it gives a different slant. And also,
yeah,
after the call, I want you to have a comfort level to ping me and go, can we have a chat outside of with the founder? I just want to get your real take. It just has a different level of discussion. And I
yeah,
think we get better results because of it.
yeah, yeah. I think so too. Why don't
Yeah.
we wrap with some rapid fire? What's one technology trend you believe is overhyped?
AI.
Probably. Yeah, I think
I
we're
think
about
so.
to hit the. You know what's interesting about AI though? It's getting 10x better every year because these
Absolutely.
model. So like I wonder if it'll live up. If this will be the first technical paradigm that doesn't go through a trial of disillusionment, like the Gartner hype cycle, right into the trough or whatever.
Yeah.
Because it's just getting so much better all the time. We'll see. But I
Time
think
will
there's a
tell.
lot of last mile stuff that has to. Yeah. What's a book that significantly influenced your professional perspectives?
Angel by Jason Calacanis. It's the whole
Yeah,
reason when I
plus one.
started. I've read it probably 10 times in the last 7 years.
10 times? Oh, wow. I need
I've
to
read it
reread
4 or
it.
5, and then I have it on audiobook. And I just go refer back to it on how to be helpful, what to do, how to stay engaged. I think he nailed it. And I know J Cal and the 4 guys on All In are not everyone's cup of tea, but I just think what he's done for the
Yeah.
industry is pretty special.
Yeah, I mean, he basically democratized angel investing more than any individual, maybe Naval from AngelList, but he's definitely been riding that wave of democratization towards earlier and smaller checks and into syndicates and
And I
stuff like
love
that.
that, like me, East Coast guy, blue collar kid, went to a state school. Like I have a lot of similarities there. And my first
Yeah,
20 investments I ever made were with Jason through his syndicate, and he
nice.
was super kind in the time he gave me and emailing back and chatting with me about what I was doing. So I have a lot of
He
appreciation
almost
for what he's
replies to
built.
every email. That's what people don't know about
Everything.
Jason.
And I didn't know this because I did so many deals.
Yeah.
I'm in his like top 1% Slack group. So like I can shoot him a note and he'll respond to me immediately. I'm like,
Wow.
aren't you busy like hanging out with Chamath? He's like, that's fine, whatever.
Yeah. Speaking of which, are you going to the All In Summit?
I don't know. I have a tough time spending 10 grand to go see a couple
Yeah.
guys play poker. I'm like, and I'm not, this is going to sound pompous and you'll know what I mean. I don't need to go hang out there to get deal flow. I think it would just be more of a fun thing to go to a party. And I'm like, do I want to spend 10 grand to go to a party and play poker?
Yeah.
Maybe.
I'm going to go this year just because I'm a big fan of the pod and I didn't go the first 2 years for a
I
variety
listen to
of
it every
reasons.
week, by the way.
Yeah, me
I think
too.
it's brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, it's a big reason I'm probably sitting here doing a podcast is Jason Calacanis. What's one piece of advice you'd give to new angel investors?
Try to prevent yourself from doing what you want to do, which is big checks into few companies. Small checks, a lot of companies learn, go slow, double down on the winners. I think it's against what everybody does. And I just think there's a lot to be learned. There's so many things that can go wrong and that you don't know. And the only way you get good at this is reps at the plate. It just is.
Yeah. Yeah. I tell people like at least 100 over 3 years, if not 100 would be a good number.
Yeah.
And that'd be about a deal per week. That means you probably have to look at about 100 deals per week. And this reminds me, like back in my real estate investing days, some of those real estate investor guru guys would be like, "Yeah, you got to go look at 100 properties before you buy one." And it's same with startups. You got to go look at about 100 and make one decision out of per 100 to invest. And so whatever your budget is per week is your strategy, or per month maybe, but you got to get to at least.
Patient. Like these companies take 8 to 10 years before anything happens. Like the fact that I've had 8 exits and it's only been 7 years, that's super unusual.
That's pretty good.
But that's unusual. And it's helped like, wow. I'm like, it's very unusual. And I would argue, Brian, that half of my exits happened way too early because the founder got tired or the market shifted and their exit was 15 million instead of 100 million. So I just think you got to be patient with it.
Yeah. What's your favorite non-work related activity? So we're not investing in startups or helping founders.
I have two. One is selfishly, I love to fish with anybody. It doesn't matter because we
Hmm.
live at the ocean. And the other is wine tasting with my wife. We're both foodies and
Oh,
wine junkies, so we love to do a good wine tasting.
what's the best wine you've ever had?
Scarecrow Etain is probably my favorite cab from Napa.
Mm.
It's a ridiculous cab. I have a couple bottles of it in my wine fridge,
I
and
think
it's
I've been
one
to
of my
that winery.
favorites.
Yeah,
It's one of
Scarecrow.
my
Yeah,
faves.
sounds familiar. Yeah,
Yeah, one of my favorites.
that's amazing. If you could invest in any company in
Mm-hmm.
history, which would it be and why?
Might have been Uber. As Jason talks about this in his book. Like when it came out, it was black cars. It was basically black cars driving around the city for rich people. And everyone said the cab companies are going to kill it. The cities are going to sue them. The unions are never going to allow it. And I'm like, that's all true. But if they could not get sued, get through the regulatory hurdle, and beat the cab companies, this could be a pretty special company. And I just turns out, and Travis, good, bad, or indifferent, I get he was out of his mind,
Yeah,
but I think to build a company like that, if you look at the massive companies, whether it's Elon or Gates or Travis or Zuck, I think you got to be a little bit, or
yeah,
Bezos, I think you got to be a little bit left of center to do it because you see the world in a way that no one else sees it. Jeff Bezos said, why can't we sell books online? And, Elon said, why can't we build the biggest electric car company in the world? Like,
yeah,
you just have to see things others don't. And I think I love to think of myself, maybe not as that much of a visionary, but I have sort of that contrarian view that anything's possible. So that's a company I look at and go, wow, it would have been really cool
yeah.
to get in early.
Love that. There's two lessons I like to take from the Uber investment. Is one, it's not about the market today; it's about the market unlock. So
Correct.
Uber basically unlocked demand that didn't previously exist because it removed so much friction in ordering a taxi, a
Mm-hmm.
ride, that it grew the size of the pie, right? It created a massive market opportunity there. And I think a lot of investors missed that.
Yes.
And then the two, Jason Calacanis is like the OG high volume and angel, early stage investor.
Mm-hmm.
And if he wasn't, he probably wouldn't have made that bet. If he was like, oh, I got to have really high conviction and write very large checks with a very high percentage of ownership and blah,
Mm-hmm.
blah, and there's a lot of people that passed because of that. Jason's like, yeah, I'll throw 25K at that. I'd like the
And Travis
founder.
was his friend, and he told Travis, "This is a stupid idea, but I'll do it because it's you."
Yeah, yeah, and that goes 100,000x, right, and makes his
Oh yeah,
entire career.
it
And
is
so
$100
that's
million.
Ron Conway before that is probably the yeah, I think it was 250 million from that one investment,
It's insane.
25K investment.
It's insane.
That's insane. So that's the asymmetry and the power law. And that's why you have to, in the earliest stages, that you have to be a high volume investor. It's way different if you're a Series B investor or investing in 100, 300 cap kind of companies. It's a different calculation. You're kind of looking at public market comps. You're trying to like 3 or 5x the money. It's just a little bit different,
And I have
ball
no
game.
interest playing there. It's just not as much fun.
Nah. No, it's why I left Wall Street. I was like, you're just doing financial engineering. Congratulations. Like, like great. You got spreadsheets to like calculate.
And Brian, haven't you made a
rule of
bunch of
40
bets over the years where you're like, wow, I don't understand this product, but I don't care because this founder's just going to win, and I'm just going to bet on them.
I just did that. I just made one. Maybe I'll introduce you, but the guy is relentless. Like he's breaking down doors just to get me on the cap table. And he's filling the round. And so he's got momentum and he's growing and doing lots of cool stuff. But he would just text me all the time. I've never had a founder so relentlessly pursue me. And I won't say who it is, but he's been on the podcast. And I'm just like, dude, if this guy is just that hungry to get a little check from us, like think of all the other stuff that he's doing.
I know.
And
That's awesome.
you're kind of looking for that as a VC,
Absolutely.
as an investor. And last question. So what does success mean to you beyond the numbers?
A lot of people think that I get into this or you get into this to make money. It's actually very far from the motivation of why I do this. I have a desire in this phase of my life to only work with people I care about, doing things I care about, and doing it on my own terms. And this is a way for me to do that and to have a massive impact on people that I care about. That's what motivates me. It's really not the money. Money, to me, is a byproduct of the amount of help I can give others. And what I always say is if I meet a founder and we do good work together, we'll figure out a way to make money. Money is just a byproduct of the success I can help others have. And then That's how I look at it. It was never a
Yeah.
motivation for why I started doing this, and it won't be till I stop doing
Yeah, I remember reading a book called Never Eat Alone.
it.
And one thing he said in the book that always stuck with me is that the value you create in the world times the number of people that you create it for is really your compensation. It's kind of like what value do you bring every day on a daily basis to how many people? And that's how you're compensated, right?
It absolutely is. It absolutely is.
Yeah. Well, how can people find Steve online and get in touch, and who should get in touch with you?
So best ways to get in touch with me, my website's handsonangel.com. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter. Those are the two platforms you'll predominantly find me on. And I want to meet two types of people, Brian. I want to meet founders that are building great SaaS companies at pre-seed and seed stage that have post-product, post-revenue. And I want to meet funders like you that are investing in those founders that can help build my ecosystem of great hands-on people that want to help founders. Those are the two people I want to talk to every day.
Oh, this was an amazing conversation, Steve. I'm sure lots of founders and investors will get a lot of value from it. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you, my friend. Appreciate you.